get the opportunity as a lawyer to grill a bunch of bankers and junior miners on an open platform. So I'm going to take the opportunity here. I'm Lili Nupen. I am the co-founder and director of a boutique law firm based in South Africa that focuses on mining and infrastructure and energy across Africa. And I've been asked to chair this panel today. I'm not sure, thank you, welcome, Anthony. I'm not sure they need too many introductions, but on my right, I've got Gervais Williams, head of equities at Premier Miton Investors. Welcome. We've got Michael Wrotniak, I'm going to call you Mike, investment manager from Orion Resources Partners, everybody knows. Anthony Viljoen, the CEO of Andrada Mining, a junior miner based in Namibia. And William Izod, the chief commercial officer from Pensana. So welcome, everybody. Our topic today is the critical role of junior miners in realizing the potential of critical minerals. And we are looking at junior miners across the African continent. So, William, let's start. Would you say that junior miners are already doing the heavy lifting when it comes to early stage discovery and project developments in the critical mineral space?
Thank you very much. So just before let me introduce myself. So thank you very much for having me here, and I feel a bit of a fraud because my background has been entirely the automotive sector, right? I've come at this from a completely different point of view. Pensana is my first foray into mining, so really welcome to be here. It's really interesting when you talk about the junior mining space and how that has kind of looked at the risks and things about that. When I look at it and approaching it from quite a different perspective, I think it's an opportunity rather than risks that the junior miners have in terms of understanding that downstream market, understanding those critical minerals and where they end up. Particularly from the automotive sector, it's about those partnerships, about those link-ups that junior miners can already build into the teams when they kind of start, and that almost de-risks it entirely. So I'm not saying that the big boys can't do that. It's just this nimble attitude that junior rare earth miners can quickly bring to the fore and can develop those relationships, particularly as we mentioned earlier in some of the other discussions, that it's a geopolitical context now. This is not just talking about an offtake. It's not just talking about the world. It's a geopolitical hot potato. And those links into governments and organizations is what someone like me can bring into this kind of sector.
Okay. So, yes, the junior miners are nimble, but are the banks, particularly the London-based banks and capital markets. So, Gervais, from a capital market standpoint, do you believe that the juniors are being adequately recognized or perhaps undervalued?
Yeah, I think you could easily argue that the entire London market is undervalued. But you can particularly argue within the London market that small caps are undervalued. And within small caps, you could argue that some of the junior miners are undervalued. So I think they're kind of at the bottom of the heap. There may be others which are lower. I'm not sure what they are. So in a simple word, yes. But that's obviously not just where they are now. What's wonderful about the future is it's different from what it is in the past. We don't quite know how different, but it's going to be, I think, sort of the Goldilocks sort of globalization is coming to an end. I think, tensions, geopolitical uncertainties, sort of grumpiness with the neighbors, nationalism and protectionism, particularly cartels. I'm expecting new cartels to set up in all sorts of different types of minerals. So basically, really, the junior miners offer an extraordinary upside potential. Not all of them, but some of them could just hit the jackpot. It's a wonderful time.
Yeah, and Mike, do you agree with that? I mean, the focus seems to be on South Africa and on the African continent from a critical minerals perspective, but I don't really see the capital flowing in. Do you agree with what Gervais is saying?
I do to an extent, yes. I think there is capital. Certainly the equity markets, I think, especially, traditionally have been based in London, who've invested in the African mineral space have dried up to an extent. So I think finding that equity is challenging. I think that there are certainly new pockets of capital that are coming to the market. The Middle East, for example, has been incredibly active in this space and incredibly active across Africa. So I think, if you have the right team and the right advisors, there's certainly capital there for you. You just have to sort of maybe work a little bit harder than you would have had to 10 years ago to find it.
And do you think it's the regulatory environment is concerning to the international investors? Do you think it's perhaps an incorrect perception? I mean, I spend a lot of my time as a lawyer trying to dispel people's views or international people's views of what it's actually like to do business in South Africa.
It's a niche space, right?
Yeah.
So I think inherently, if you're a generalist investor, there's always going to be a bit of a learning curve to understand the unique regulations in South Africa, and then in any jurisdiction for that matter, right? Because none two are alike. It can be done, of course.
Yeah.
Is it an obstacle? Certainly, but it can be overcome. Many of these regulations are complex, but we're in a complex industry, so I think it warrants it. I mean, simplification anywhere you can, I think, is important, but certainly not suggesting that anyone should cut corners or do anything off-piste.
And maybe you guys can just move around a little bit. Tell me, as an actual junior miner in the space, obviously in Namibia, but are you seeing the capital flowing in? And if, like, for example, the Orion Resources partners, are they investing in you? And if so, why?
We did in 2013.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very lucky.
And only why 2013 and not 2025?
Well, I'm actually very lucky to be sharing the stage with two of my biggest shareholders. Thanks, guys. And
There we go.
It's good to hear that I'm still undervalued, so lots of room to buy some more.
You shouldn't have a job if you're undervalued.
Touche, Brendan, touche. No, but look, we are seeing the market starting to realize that there's opportunities in the space. Unfortunately, if I look at the junior mining space from a CEO point of view, there's been a lot of promise in the past. People don't follow through on their promises all the time. Most of it's good to deliver. But I remember in 2017, I think it was Gervais, when we first floated Andrada, we took a different approach, and we were very encouraged by Gervais at the time to say, look at things differently, get into production, understand your ore body, get that cash flow, because too often, junior mining companies rely too much on their equity without delivering return on that equity, and it's left us all in a bad state. But I do think that's changing, and I do think that the next, or this generation, my generation of CEOs, are taking a more responsible view in terms of shareholder capital and using that and delivering value. So thanks again, guys.
Does that look like there might be a further investment? No, I'm just So, William, would you agree then with Ant, and particularly from a Pensana perspective, I guess what differentiates juniors that are active? You guys have an unbelievable story, and you really have put that narrative out. What are the differentiating factors?
It's a really good question. I think what we see in the world is kind of how we've been able to progress that journey. So number one, it was mentioned in the previous panel, is that looking at infrastructure and the things that have to be on site to deliver that project. My chair has this great quote where he looks for the infrastructure first and then tries to find a resource. Right? So in Angola, we have the Lobito corridor, which is less than 3 kilometers away from our site. So we have ability to ship products straight to the international port of Lobito and out. We have access to hydroelectric power. We have access to resources. It's a phenomenal asset. So those things put us above the rest in terms of implementation and lower risks associated with the project. But not just that. I think it's about the project delivery team. It's about taking the project and being realistic and saying, we want to take this to the end. I think the days where you expected to be bought out by a major are gone. I think we need to look at who we've got working in our team. We've got an incredible CEO, massive experience of Angola, of delivering projects across Africa. Incredible. Rob Kaplan, again, massive experience on site. A project director who's 35 years of experience in African mining industry. These are people that are going to deliver projects. And alongside that, we have fantastic metallurgists. We have myself looking at where we can take the project to and look at the partnerships that we can develop. It's just a huge opportunity for us to knock this out of the park.
It's an interesting point. I mean, you're messing with my questions here, but it's an interesting point that you say that you don't believe that the majors, that kind of time period of the majors buying out the juniors is. Do you agree with that, Gervais? Do you agree that?
I think it's easy looking back to say that's been the case. Commodity prices in many cases have disappointed, and many of the majors got their own projects to get on with. But I don't agree going forward, no. I think we are going to be in a very sort of uncertain period, and as that will lead to certain metals or certain minerals going completely ballistic. So I think we're getting majors coming in. We're actually talking about some of the governments beginning to actually offer grants, which I think is going to get a lot more important as well. And on top of that, I think actually, it will be that certain countries suddenly become very hot and people want to be in some countries rather than other countries. So I think that location could be very important. You could have a fantastically good ore body, but just in a location. Obviously, the example is going back to 22 when we had the Russian invasion, say in Russia, where you suddenly, it's worthless. I mean, Polymetal used to be a FTSE 100 company. It dropped 90% in a day.
Wow. Yeah, so I guess the other point that you've made, so yes, potentially the majors could come in, your view, maybe not, but the infrastructure. I mean, juniors generally don't have that ability to have that infrastructure up front. And that's where they're looking for the capital. And that's where I think it's this risk capital that has been spoken about on these panels, not just from a South African perspective or African continent perspective, but it's also the risk of being a junior miner because of all of these additional infrastructure issues and resource confirmation, etc. And how would you approach, if you were to approach an investor at this stage, would you take the kind of what the Chinese do, say, can you come, can we build roads, can we create all the infrastructure and then build the mine, or how would you do it?
Yeah, so look, I mean, we've
perfect
actually...
world.
Yeah, we're going through, similar things in Namibia. We've built our operations basically from scratch. We had the grid power and water availability there. But what we are seeing is that the role of the development finance institutions is becoming more prominent. So things like the DFC, who are now starting to take a holistic view of projects, the Exim Bank out of the States as well, and so in order for them to secure these critical minerals, they're coming in and investing in the infrastructure as well as the project. So it's what you're saying there about what William was saying about getting infrastructure and then building or trying to find a resource to match that. It does have some resonance, but I do think that you are going to see, especially now with the push for critical minerals, you're going to see government institutions play a much bigger role and starting to roll out a lot more infrastructure to access these minerals.
And I guess just given your story and what you've said now about going in and other than, kind of building your own infrastructure, what kind of, and given that you are in this tech mineral space, what kind of mindset have you had to have to make this a success? Because it really does seem that Andrada is on the path to success. So is it ignorance? Is it stupidity? Is it high anxiety levels? I see you lost your hair.
Blissful ignorance is probably the best mindset. Look, you've got to always be positive. You've got to, because it's not only about building a mine. You're actually building a company at the same time. And so as much as you try and manage all of the intricacies of extracting value out of ore body, you've still got to build a business, and I think a lot of people miss that. So you tend to get technical heavy guys missing out on the commercial side of things, and vice versa. So I think trying to navigate that is also a very misunderstood part of developing a mining company.
And I think that's exactly what William said as well, just having the correct team and having the correct people and the correct vision.
Yeah.
So Gervais, as an investor in the small cap space, what gives you confidence that a junior project is likely to succeed? And I guess what are the red flags that you look out for when you look to invest?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the future is very uncertain, so you've got to be fairly curtain, certainly sort of fairly open-minded about your assumptions. And so from my point of view, the quicker the period to cash payback, the better, obviously. So cash payback is obviously part of it. But actually, I think the environment could change a lot as well. So you have to be very interested in the cash payback, and it could be different, But most particularly, my working assumption is that, inflationary pressures will be here for quite some time, off and on, and that most fund managers are hopelessly underweight physical assets. That includes energy, but includes mining stocks. And so it's not just, obviously, having the right mine, having the right asset, but actually a company which can actually tell its story so that other fund managers can also get excited and drive the share price up. Obviously, at the end of the day, we all want the share prices up. The company wants it up so they can raise capital at a more modest rate. Obviously, we want it up because it's a sort of way of demonstrating value to our shareholders too. So it's a combination, really. Short time to cash flow, love that. That's why we liked Anthony when he moved into pilot production rather than doing a whole JORC survey. But the second thing is try and find things which a company can really tell its story. I'm very interested in companies which are very good at telling their story.
Yeah. I mean, I'm no broker by any stretch of the imagination, but I've been involved, the juniors, it's my passion. I love the junior mining space. And what I have seen is that there are quite a few funding limits at the moment with regards to how much people are willing to fund as a floor, I guess, an initial fund amount. Is this something that happens in the London space? Is it something that is there like an unwritten rule as to how much one should be or can put into a junior company?
There are rules which kind of pertain to the last few years and stuff, but they can change just like that. I mean, there's a company in the US called MicroStrategy, you probably all know it. It invests in Bitcoin and then it issues more shares, and it's been a sort of circular thing. Anyway, just in the last few weeks, you've probably seen this. There's a couple of companies in the UK which are sort of MicroStrategy lookalikes, tiny little companies. So it's kind of difficult to raise money in the market, but this company called SmarterWeb, I'm sure you've all seen it. SmarterWeb was listed in the UK at 2.5p about 6 weeks ago. It's gone up 107 times now. So, and it's risen, it raised a lot of money, 10s, 20s, 30s, and it's bought Bitcoin. It's all, a very exciting story. Whether it's worth what it's worth, we'll find out long term. But coming back to it, that just demonstrates, 6 weeks ago, I wouldn't have been able to say that. So things can change literally on a pin. So, and I think they are changing on a pin. We are seeing the UK market outperforming. We're seeing UK small caps outperforming the main market. UK small caps are now one of the best performing assets globally. I think that will be a sort of pattern which consistently comes through for the next 30 years, 20 years. I'm very upbeat about that. But most particularly, that does mean that many companies may see the opportunity to raise capital tomorrow in a way they didn't see last week or last month. Things can change very, very quickly.
Yeah, okay. And Mike, where do you see the capital coming from these days? And have you seen that the landscape, as Gervais is saying, is kind of changing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, we're still very active for what it's worth. We have a handful of peers in the private equity space who remain very active. I think the biggest shift, it's funny, over the past couple of years, we're talking about the environment has really shifted in the mining space in terms of the capital provision. 3 years ago, it was all about the OEMs. Where is PowerCo? Where is Ford? Where is Volvo? Where are they putting their money in? Who are they partnering with? That was a big deal. And as we sort of face some headwinds with the energy transition, which I still firmly believe is occurring at the moment, just a bit slower than many people had hoped and wanted. I'd argue anyone in this room probably could have told you that 3 years ago. But in any event, the new trendy money seems to be government, particularly the U.S., who I'm sure that's been talked about quite a bit over the past couple of days, is really starting to wake up and really starting to take a keen interest in investing across the mineral space and in Africa in general. So that seems to me to be the new pool of capital that surprisingly has been quite active. And that's across the development scope. So that is exploration, that is development, grants for things like feasibility studies, engineering studies, et cetera, all the way up through construction financing as well, infrastructure financing, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and it's great that they're taking the leap because, geez, Africa's been waiting for that money for a very long time. So it really is encouraging to see that. Okay, so William, if you believe that the majors or the approach is that majors potentially are not going to be the next big ticket for the juniors, what do you think? How do you think the juniors can move up the curve and become successful?
So I think I agree with Gervais's point. I think it's very important that there are majors looking. You know, we've jumped that valley of death and we're into the construction mode.
Yeah.
So I understand that that's the position that we're in. Now, it's around how that looks. You know, thinking about we need to be able to deliver. We need to demonstrate as a management team that we would take this project to the end and deliver it. Because as a major coming in, they need to have confidence in the management team to deliver that asset. Yes, of course, they're interested in, I guess, control, or but then what they're more interested in is cash flow from that asset in the future. And they need a team to be able to do that. So I think that's kind of the important part that we need to see in terms of development joint venture.
So interesting. I mean, we've just seen Anglo in, basically disaggregate, and now who we kind of look to who are the majors or who are the other larger companies who are going to play that role now, from particularly in South Africa and in Africa. So, Ant, your perspective on what the most common funding misconceptions or mistakes are made by the juniors? Like, how should what are your issues?
That's a bit of a loaded question, but no. So look, I think that as I said earlier, too often people get the balance between debt and equity wrong. We've seen that unfortunately not in the recently. But also at the same time not delivering value on the equity that you do take. So I think that there needs to be a balance between what we do as CEOs and what we deliver in terms of equity and debt returns to our funding partners. So I think that I think it's just people underestimate how critical capital deployment is.
Yeah, and it's building that trust.
Exactly.
To your investors. Okay. Both of you are listed. And do you see this has this been really a benefit from a junior perspective?
That's a very good question.
A loaded question.
That sounds like a no.
Lily's
Putting it out there.
I think, as we've built the project over the last few years, and in particular closing into the last 2 years, we've looked to fund the project at the asset level. There's no dilution at Topco, and we haven't asked the city for any money. I think that's been answered your question in terms of our strategy, in terms of where we need to develop the project and how we've built that capital requirements to move into construction. Now, I think it's, this is on the back of having a rare earth project now into construction when the next people, the two other non-Chinese rare earth players are valued at 6 billion apiece. How does that not happen why is the London market not there for those kind of players? And I think that's, a question back to the esteemed colleagues on the panel.
Good.
Is, when does that change? When does the market suddenly go, right, critical minerals are here to stay? It's driven by a demand cycle, which is phenomenal. The introduction of AI, machine learning, these all require rare earth minerals into those assets. Robotics, that will be the new generation of things which happens. Everyone will. I think we're probably the last generation to be existing without a humanoid robot within the home. This is going to be a massive growth cycle, which will require rare earths. This is not going away.
So maybe, let's pose your question to them. Mike, do you want to answer it?
Private versus public?
Yeah.
We don't care is the answer. We're different to you guys in the sense that we can invest across the spectrum, public or private companies. So to us, it doesn't matter. I think what I can say is I've certainly seen a lot more private companies in the mining space come across my desk in the last 3 years than I ever have. So maybe that tells you something. I think it's a unique industry in the sense that, a bit like the tech space where, at best, typically from first, discovery to first cash flow is 10 years. So that requires some very patient capital, more patient than we can even be. So if you want to be private and you want to stay private, I think you need to find some very sticky money that can hang around for a long time without, a demand for a liquidity event. And then if you can do that, by all means, go for it. But if you want to raise capital on a consistent basis, if you want to look to change and develop and grow your shareholder base, I think probably going public is the right move.
Gervais, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a waste of time being public, really, for many years. I don't need to tell you guys this. I mean, basically, we've had, if you look at the last 10 years, the global markets are up 2 times. So £1 worth £3, FTSE World Index or something. If you put £1 in the Magnificent Seven in the last 10 years, that's worth, in sterling terms, 26 times your money. So we've just had money sucked out of everything, to be honest. It's all sucked dry. London's been sucked dry, small caps have been sucked dry. It's just been kind of prawning over broken glass. I don't need to tell you the guys, right? But things can change, and they are changing. This year to date, UK markets are outperforming, small caps are outperforming. So things can change, and what's so good about being public isn't so much that, you can go down an awfully long way, but you can, when things come back fast, and share prices change fast, opportunities to raise capital change fast. So actually, when things are more uncertain, and suddenly things turn your way, you're first in the queue in terms of raising capital. Private, there's obviously a place for private, and particularly for sticky private, if you've got something which is going to take 10 years to bring into production, don't bring it to market 10 years early. But most particularly, as you get nearer the production, as you get nearer the payback, the opportunity for you as a company to suddenly get lucky, or get very, very lucky, is wonderful. So definitely listings now, having been a complete waste of time for the last 10 years, I think there's huge advantages to being listed at the moment. Second point is that lots of companies, unfortunately, are going to run out of capital. So you may be able to, you've got your own mine, perhaps into production, a little bit in production like Anthony or something, but then you can pick up a distressed asset from someone who's run out of money. And of course, you pay nothing for it, and you make out like a complete bandit. Marvelous stuff.
So, Anthony, you're going to do that?
No, no, but look, that does what Gervais says is true. I mean, I've seen it with a couple of companies that we've been involved with. There's overnight things just go massively right. The commodity price goes your way. And I think the important thing in mining is about staying in the game for as long as possible, because the cycle you're always going to get a good point in the cycle, and you've got to make sure that you just maintain your costs and your capital burn until you hit that cycle. I think tin is, sorry, I'll just have a look back.
No,
I do think tin is very much poised for a very big boost, and we do actually mine tin. So just as a bit of a punt there for everybody.
I'm a bull of tin.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Technology minerals through and through.
Yeah, it's also this shortage. I mean, if you go back to 1930s, I'm not saying it's going to be the same, but there was the tin cartel set up in the 30s. I'm not saying it's going to be a tin cartel, but there could be. ...
Have I gone over my time, or
You're
is
going to be
it?
the head of it.
Yeah.
I'm head of the cartel.
Lawyers ignoring the cartel conversation.
No, exactly. I don't hear this. And from a Pensana perspective, I don't know if you want to maybe give a bit of a sneak view into what is in the future, given the fact that as a junior miner, obviously your sights are ahead of you. So.
No, I mean, absolutely. I'm pretty excited to see this development schedule over the next 2 years. And like to your point, getting into cash flow is primary in our minds. But that said, we've got investment from the DFC to start looking at the downstream. We've got, interest from other parties. We did a partnership with Toyota Tsusho just 2 weeks ago, and another one with Re-Element as an MOU. And these are supportive collaborations. So we're really investigating what's the right point for the company, right? What's the right point for us to take the material through? And that really opens up some significant questions in terms of moving that rare earth chain all the way to metal, and then you're feeding the magnet makers themselves, and that's that unlocks the ability to really be talking on the global stage then. That's what people need at the very final point.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bernard, you brought Africa to London. Let's hope we can take some of London back to Africa.
That's not my job, eh? No, that's beyond me, yeah.
You want it to Cape Town in February.
Eh?
As long as it's Cape Town in February.
February,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
Easy sell.
That one
Very
exists.
easy sell, yeah.
That bus up exists. The conversations happen in Joburg. I want to ask the question from the audience is, has the wave of critical minerals influenced the junior mining sector? Now, you can say it's obvious yes, but can I ask each one of you, this wave of the new narrative, critical minerals, has that impacted on your life, Anthony?
Look, it's given me a new buzzword to sell to audiences, but
Then it's also critical now.
look, all minerals are critical, Bernard. I think that people are massively underestimating the effort it takes to discover and build a mine. You look at the copper space, look at the tin space. Every mineral is now being consumed at a rate that is not being replaced at the rate it's being consumed. So you're hitting supply squeezes in all of these. So I think that like every mineral at this stage is critical, and as Gervais says, you've got to start getting cartels. You're going to the hoarding of minerals, things like that are going to start being a lot more commonplace. So we can talk what is a critical mineral. I think they're all critical minerals. And as Gwede Mantashe said, even coal's a critical mineral.
I won't quote him here, but we actually asked the audience at the start of the conference about criticality, and the majority of people said, if we mine it, it's critical.
Yeah.
But there is a narrative. Has that influenced Orion's have you followed a fad? Have you gone into stuff that you otherwise wouldn't have gone into?
No, I think absolutely. And look, I don't know if I'd necessarily call it a fad, although I appreciate why you're saying that. Look, we were founded in 2012, and we were initially a copper and gold shop. That's all we did. But this sort of heightened attention and increased attention on the critical mineral space, I think, has really pushed us to diversify the commodities we invest in. So, we're in lithium, we're obviously in tin, vanadium, high purity manganese. So all of these things, rare earths, all these things that 10 years ago we wouldn't have wanted to touch because no one was really interested in them, and we didn't know much about the markets, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it allowed us to really diversify our portfolio quite a bit.
And reflecting on that, so let's not call it a fad, but this wave.
Yeah.
Have you gone into things that now with hindsight you think, perhaps I shouldn't have?
No. Yes.
Yes. We all must have done it.
Yeah, but that is the challenge with the compelling narrative. It makes the entry
but look, what I would say is this. I mean, a lot of these sort of critical mineral, battery, energy transition materials that we've made investments in over the past 4 years, unfortunately, the consensus outlook for these commodity prices 4 years ago were like this, and everyone knows the price has kind of gone like this. And so, look, I think if you get the commodity price right, everything else tends to fall into place. And I think that spike, that boom, still will come. It's just going to take longer than any of us anticipated, unfortunately.
You're young enough and you've got deep pockets. I'm much older and
my pockets are quite thin personally. But
you and I can offline talk about my own investment in high purity manganese sulfate, my own money. So we can take that offline.
Happy to do it.
We better
Probably
live
over a
long
beer.
to see this. Did you get caught up in this critical mineral
not too
narrative?
badly. No, I mean, obviously we've made some investments which didn't turn out well, but not too badly. I mean, I think sometimes it's surprising what a good bit of sort of a name can make a big difference. I think calling rare earths, whoever did it was genius, absolute genius, because they're all over the place. No, don't get me wrong.
Exactly.
I'm not saying Pensana isn't a great company, but what I'm saying is actually there's a lot more rare earths around. It's about the refining and all the other stuff which goes with it. So fund managers do get sucked in, maybe some of the other industry people, but you get this rare earths. Oh, I'm very interested. Tell me about rare earths. Oh my God. So anyway, so there's a bit of that. But then I did a conference a couple of years ago, and people were kind of somewhat unsure about it, and there was a great debate about whether gold was going to go through 2,000. I said it was going to go through 3. And we know now it's 3,334. So coming back to it, the whole point is, right, we must be very kind of humble about what price is going to be. They can be far lower than we expect, but boy, can they be a lot higher than we expect. So don't, the diversity point, which you brought up, Michael, I mean, that's very much a good point. Let's not be too precise about what's going to be a winner and what's going to be a loser. Make sure you've got enough bets on the table.
Yeah. But I mean, you wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for a critical mineral.
Can you name them?
Yeah.
Can you name all the rare earths?
A very good job.
Now, can you pronounce them?
We need longer than
Exactly.
That I can.
that. Yeah.
So, you're obviously part of a bigger narrative.
No, absolutely. I mean, critical minerals, I think it gets so many different definitions, and governments have stepped on it, and, all sorts of, nobody really wants to put their name on it and say this is what a critical mineral is. But for Pensana, it's, what does it underpin? The industries that rare earth minerals do underpin is vast. It's not just automotive, it's not just offshore wind or robotics or AI or, these 16 elements across the bottom of the periodic table do go into a whole host of a number of things, which, when you think about the industries that could be impacted if you cut it off, it's huge. We talk about the magnets because that's the sexy piece. If you went to...
You find a magnet sexy, you must get out of it.
I'm a chemist.
I know, we need to get this guy out.
So, I mean, if you went out there today to try and buy a high-purity rare earth magnet, you wouldn't be able to. That's the current position today, is that you can't get hold of it. I mean, that's serious. When you see, tier one automotive companies in the EU shutting down and stopping production, this is serious news. The costs of that impacting.
Well, feast and famine, that's the whole point about commodity prices,
Right. Yeah, absolutely right.
Thank you. Can I then ask perhaps each one of you, and perhaps the two of you have got no choice to answer what you will answer, but let me start with the people with open minds and open budget. If you could go to a African country now for a commodity, where would you go? I want a country with a commodity. Yeah, you choose.
Right. I mean, actually, I'm kind of anxious about foreign currency. I think lots of African countries will actually have the commodities, they'll have the miners, they'll have the production, and I'm actually very worried that quite a lot of them are going to run out of hard currency. The UK ran out of hard currency in 1976, right? I'm not just saying this is an African thing. So I am very interested in making sure you actually choose countries which have a current account deficit, current account surplus. South Africa. I'll go South Africa first.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Please, come and say that again and again.
Yeah.
Did anybody ask your opinion?
No.
Lili, where would you go if you could go to
Really?
one country for one commodity now? Where in Zambia would you go?
South Africa.
Okay, man. Really, you also need to get out a bit. Huh? Okay, so Michael, you really have got the whole of Africa. as
Yeah,
your
I'm
plan.
not allowed to say tin in Namibia, am I?
Sad.
I could have done it as well.
Listen, I think you need to increase
Look,
that.
I'm gonna maybe, it's gonna sound a bit of a cop-out, but I really like gold at the moment. I think gold is becoming a more and more, strategic critical mineral. A lot of governments are stockpiling gold. It's not just about, energy transition material anymore. It's about, hard currency, so to speak, and gold can be viewed as that. So I'd say any jurisdiction that has, good, serious gold reserves, South Africa, anywhere in West Africa, not Mali, no.
Yeah, no.
But South Africa, West Africa, absolutely.
Thank you. I know I paid you to say this so that Harmony feels that their sponsorship was worth it. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
That's why you got your ticket for free. See, that was closing the loop. Now, I know what you have to say, but if you don't have to say that, where in Africa would you like to go next for which commodity?
Look, Bernard, so my heritage is obviously very strongly linked to geology. So, we'd chase geology, but look, outside of Namibia, which is phenomenal, and I do believe that the region we're in is probably going to be the next Western Australia, and we've lucky enough to get all of the key assets in that area. Just another little punt there, but look, I'd have to go South Africa. I mean, the geology there is just so incredible. So you go south of Joburg, you've got the the biggest, the next biggest gold deposit on the planet is, the Wits is still 6 times bigger than that. You go north of Pretoria, you've got the Bushveld complex, the biggest repositories of nickel, chrome, vanadium, PGEs, and that's, we haven't even started exploring the granites within the Bushveld complex. You go east of Joburg, you've got the 3rd biggest thermal coal deposit on the planet. You go west, you've got the biggest diamond fields ever discovered. You know, like how we've managed to mess it up is quite spectacular, because the opportunities are just so enormous.
Just left a bit for the next generation. We haven't messed it up. And I mean, you know, it's perhaps if we get Michael to come to Joburg instead of Cape Town, we can solve all these problems. So, Angola.
I mean, I'm going to be entirely biased here, but
No.
put it into perspective. The outgoing president of the United States, the last place he visited was Angola. Right this week, there's the delegates from the USX and USTDA, DFC, all in meeting in Luanda. I think that it's the sense of urgency and the sense of opportunity in Angola right now it's electric. It really is fascinating, not least that they've got a sovereign wealth fund which is massively supportive of the mining industry. The government is really challenging itself on corruption. It's absolutely revolutionized the way that it's doing business with mining codes, installation, all of this kind of stuff. And it does have a legacy of mining, right? So it does know what it should be doing. And it's unexplored. You know, the opportunities there are huge. So I think we should be doing more.
I'm a little bit biased because of the last 2 years of the junior Indaba, and so, but I have a few concerns about the recent regime change of Botswana, Namibia. You know, there's always new politicians with new narratives, but everything I hear about Angola is super exciting, I must say. Perhaps it's off a low base, but it's a fantastic story that is evolving. But that's obviously sitting in a neighboring country hearing the story, so I like the Angola story.
You know, the Lobito corridor, that narrative didn't exist a few years ago. And we've just been, I mean, admittedly, we've been riding the wave of a number of other people's work, but it is absolutely fascinating to see all this stuff develop while we're there. And then critical minerals comes along, and all of a sudden you can't get rare earths, and we're sitting in a fantastic position.
Except for Michael, the rest of us are not so keen on having an American president visit. It's quite problematic. It causes its own troubles. We say before he visits Cape Town.
I think he'd like it there.
Ladies, gentlemen, critical minerals, we have many conversations about. This was about Africa, the opportunities. I actually think Africa is going to be a super exciting place if the wave continues, if the rediscovery of how important mining is. You ultimately have to go to where the ore bodies are. I mean, that's geology to the core. And so thank you very much, Lili. For a lawyer, you're doing
Not
quite
too
well.
bad.
Send your invoice to Andrada. Don't
And
send
he
it
was
to-
late.
I really want to thank you. Why don't we go and have a cup of tea, and then we can talk real gold, proper gold, especially
gold.
for you.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.